Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Rachel's Studio. If you're not familiar with me, I'm Rachel Parker Varner. I've been painting for 20 years, and I like to teach not just the how, but the why of watercolors so you move along your painting journey a lot faster. In today's video, it's going to be the last 8 minutes of this tutorial where I really pull everything together and put the last finishing touches, and I include a tip where we can learn something from photography from the 50s of Hollywood starlets and why they softened their images and how we can apply that little secret that makes those pictures so beautiful to our own painting. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, time for the finishing touches. And my favorite thing to do towards the end of the painting process is to use my stiff scrubber. And the secret to success with stiff scrubbers are using decent paper. You cannot use this on student grade paper. You cannot use stiff scrubbers on hot press. You can use soft scrubbers on Stonehenge hot press, and it will be very effective. But on this hot press paper, you want to make sure you're working with decent paper. Arches cold press and Bow Hung's the best. And I select a few edges that I want to soften. And I got some of the paint kind of collecting at the edges, and I could scrub some of that, but I kind of liked the effect in this instance. One way to prevent that would have been to tip my painting up away from that edge so the paint didn't collect at the edges of the fur there where I was just scrubbing. But it will make your work so much more dreamy if you soften some edges, blur some areas where you've got a light fox on light background or light area of one part of the fox, like here in his muzzle. There's matching values between his chest and parts of his muzzle. And those are perfect opportunities to blur the edges. Like here in the ear, I blurred an edge, made a disappearing edge. Disappearing edges will make your work look dreamy, painterly, more professional, more inviting to the eye. Think in terms of Hollywood starlets and how they would soften and slightly blur images of Hollywood starlets in the 50s. Same idea. It's just something about that softening effect that really makes something more aesthetically pleasing often. And you don't need to do all the edges, just do a few. This is my Pigma Micron pen. I'm going to use 01. I used 05 in another one, and it got a little bit heavy for the whiskers and signing. You could use, if you want to use strictly watercolor, if you're going to be in competitions or whatever, you can use a rigger with T consistency paint for this. But this will give you more control if it's not important that you're not entering a competition or you don't want it to be purely watercolor. It doesn't matter. And in most situations, it really doesn't matter. And this is what I call putting on the jewelry. You don't want too much. You don't want too little. I noticed where my paper was still a little damp, it made the whisker darker. So I probably should have let this dry and then do the whiskers. But remember, whiskers come in about clumps of 3. You don't want them evenly spaced. You don't want whisker gate. You want to make a few of the whiskers half whiskers, like they start out in the middle of space, not attached to the fox. So it looks like the light is dancing across them when you do that. So not every single whisker needs to start at the muzzle and go all the way to the tip. You can start it halfway out away from the fox's face, in fact, to make it have a look like a light is dancing across it. And it'll just add interest too. I also love to scribble with pen. I really like how it looks. So I'm just doing a little bit of scribbling. If that's not your style, you don't have to. And this is where individual style comes in, and you can do what you like. And on my other fox with the forest behind it, I did a lot of scribbling along the edges of the fox, and I liked how it looked. So you can look at that painting too and decide if you like that look. But I do like to put extra details around the eyes because that tells the viewer to look at the eye. Just, you don't want to overdo it. You can also sign with this pen. I'm going to start dating my work again because I like to see when I made it. I've heard the advice, don't date your work because then someone might see that you painted it 10 years ago and they think no one wants it and they don't want it either. I don't really care about that. but that's a thought. All right, I'm going to splash some snow on, and I'm actually not going to use my Kuretake white ink. I think this Dr. Phil Martin's white ink is easier for splashing purposes. So I'm just going to put a little bit on my plate, add a little bit of water, and just add some fun splashy snow effects. If your blots or your splashes get a little too small, you can add water, although they won't dry as white. They'll be more transparent. So it's a trade-off. And I think it looks good to have some darker or more transparent ones and some more thick white ink, just to have a variety of marks and splats for the snow. And I think this is just such a great finishing touch. It just looks like a snowy background to me. So why not put some snow, right? And that's pretty much what I did. I was thrilled with how this painting came out. It was mostly wet on dry, pretty simple, straightforward painting techniques. I didn't do anything too fancy. I just threw water on it after I put the paint down. In a nutshell, that's how I painted this. I painted wet on dry, let it set up a little, and then splat water on it to dreamify it. And I love this. You're gonna see more tutorials like this. The closest thing I got to this style that's also happens to be beginner friendly, but I think it's great for any level of watercolor artist. The other tutorial I would suggest you watch, not necessarily to paint a cat, but a very similar in style painting I did, was Beginner Diana. Now it's called Beginner Diana because it's simple to paint, but that doesn't mean there's not more advanced lessons. So I really do think there's something for everyone in that tutorial as well. Another tutorial that I did that was very straightforward, wet on dry painting and lots of layers. It shows you how to layer paint to get really deep values in color. It was a beginner Frisian. It was a close-up painting of a black horse. You can see his bridle, and it's just a close-up of his face. So that's another really beginner-friendly, but also you'll learn something, I think, even if you're an advanced painter. And that's kind of how I design all my tutorials. It's kind of like Disney. There's something for everyone. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to post your paintings on my Facebook group. And until next time, go watercolor your world. Bye, everybody.